Well, good morning. I'm Jeff Coleman.
And I'm Deborah Pinkerton. Welcome to Morning Light. Well, in the wake of last month's arson fire at the Pennsylvania governor's residence, Governor Josh Shapiro says he and his family have been uplifted by the support of former governors, first ladies, and their families.
And Deborah, yesterday Shapiro's office released this remarkable photo that included all living Pennsylvania governors, including Tom Wolf, Tom Corbett, Ed Rendell, Mark Schweiker, Governor Tom Ridge, along with their first ladies. Family members representing Governors Bob Casey Sr. and Dick Thornburg were also in the picture.
Wow, wonderful picture and wonderful support as well.
It is. All parties, all segments of the state, many eras represented there.
Well, switching gears, American investor Warren Buffett announced he is retiring at the end of the year. Our Morning Light panel will examine his life and legacy. But first, here is a preview of what's coming up later in the show. Sex trafficking is widespread, and it's happening all across Pennsylvania. It is the fastest growing illegal crime in the world and generates about $236 billion in profits each year. North Star Initiative is working to help survivors find safe housing, employment, and an effective support system.
You see sex trafficking in movies and then realizing it is so close to home. It's just unconscionable, really.
Yeah, happening right here in Pennsylvania.
Well, he always said he had no plans to retire, but age is writing the last chapter of an unparalleled financial career. Warren Buffett, the world's fifth richest man with a net worth of over $168 billion. The Oracle from Omaha announced he'd be stepping down at the end of this year as CEO of Berkshire Hathaway during its annual meeting on Saturday. The conglomerate is valued at, Deborah, $1.16 trillion. T.
I don't even know what that means.
How did you
I just know it's a lot of money.
Were you at the meeting?
That would have been nice. Well, biographers of Warren Buffett trace much of his signature modesty, humility, and ethical compass to his parents, conservative Christians and members of Dundee Presbyterian Church in Omaha. But Warren says he's agnostic. He sees faith as the opposite of logic. He once told an interviewer, "I simply don't know, and maybe someday I'll know, or maybe someday I won't, but I wish everyone well on their own religion."
Deborah, I think he's keeping it open at 94. He's keeping that possibility open, and that's a conversation I can tell he's been wrestling with for many years.
Well, let's certainly hope so.
By every measure, Warren Buffett is the rare exception to the gaudy world of modern billionaires. He takes out his own trash. He was married to his wife, Susan, for 52 years before her death. He lives in a modest home with a 2-car garage, no guard shack. He drives an 11-year-old Cadillac with hail damage. His McDonald's drive-through habits are legend, and he's given billions away to charity. So how do we begin to evaluate the true greatness of Warren Buffett or any person defined by extreme wealth, achievement, and generosity? We'll take this question to the Morning Light panel this morning. And full disclosure, any of you billionaires that you need to disclose this morning?
Not here.
Future billionaires.
Not anymore. Yeah.
Right?
Unfortunately.
Some important decisions.
Yeah, right.
Well, thank you and welcome back. Pastor Biser, good to have you back.
It's great to be here.
Amber Benzon, good to have you.
It's good to be
Luke
here.
Covert, nice to see your face again.
See you too.
So, Warren Buffett, a lot of people are thinking about it, and I think what people often think of when they see the number next to his name, they go, oh, what I could do if I had that. And you turn to your children, and some parents say, you could do that too, but here's how you have to live. What sacrifices do you think he had to make to get there? And were those sacrifices worth it, just as we're taking the totality of his life and legacy here this morning?
Right. I think probably something that all four of us have experienced is going someplace and having somebody know you and not being able to hide anywhere. I can't go to the grocery store. I'm sure that's true for all of us.
Yeah.
You know, once you have a visibility level, you now have an accessibility level that you have to tolerate or moderate in some way. And I think that's probably the sacrificial piece.
There's a trade-off.
Right. Some people live into that well and some people don't. And I think the people who don't live in it well figure out ways to hide. And those of us who do, I'm a people person, so I enjoy going to the store and spending 2 hours instead of 2 minutes, because I ran into 15 people that I know and they all want to chat.
And your wife has learned not to send you to the store for milk.
Right. Yeah, she's like, I know you're going to the store, I'll see you in an hour, right? And just going for milk. But I enjoy standing and talking
Right.
with people. It's the pastor side of me.
Right.
And so that may be part of, I think, what any person in that position has to sacrifice. Yeah.
Amber, we're looking at Warren Buffett's life and these extraordinary statements that he has made repeatedly. So one of the gifts of this investors meeting is that you can ask Warren Buffett anything. Let me show you, before you answer what you think of it, what Warren Buffett said to an investors meeting in India about faith in God and what he thinks of the divine.
I am personally an agnostic, and I'm a true agnostic. I do not, I'm right in the middle. I do not, it is not because I'm a closet atheist, it's not because I'm a closet theist. I simply, I grew up in a religious family, and as I began to think for myself, I came to the conclusion that I don't know.
In one sense, Amber, he's very respectful of his parents, of people in Omaha who live the way that the Buffetts lived, but he has not been able to make the math work for God. People that think like Warren Buffett, that think in Excel files and think logically about money and the return on investment, can't sometimes see the path. What is the obstacle, you think, there to seeing faith?
I don't know his heart, but I do know this. Everything we know about Buffett is his father was a tremendous influence in his life. He cited his unconditional love, his belief in him that had empowered him to succeed. Any good historian or political scientist knows that if you want to understand the founding fathers, you read what they read. Aristotle, Cicero, Locke, Burke, Montesquieu. His father read the Bible. So to be able to understand where was the source of that unconditional love and belief in me, you have to go back to the source material and not diving in and taking the time to understand how you are able to be empowered to be the man you were because of where your father derived his strength. That's the biggest impediment, I would think.
That would be, yeah. Luke, there's a generation who would like to have the ethics, the morals, the reputation of Warren Buffett's father, but not have to do the church thing, not have to do the volunteer thing, be part of a community, be accountable to people in real life. What do you think the separation there and lessons for you from Warren Buffett's life?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that people have taken morality, made that the main thing, and taken spirituality and made it like the preferred topping on your morality. So it's like spirituality is totally fine as long as it's just the spice on top of this baseline. Human, I don't even know what you'd call it, human-centered. What's the word for that? Yeah, you know, human.
Humanism.
Humanism, there you go, morality. I think that's just a modern thing. When I look at someone like Warren Buffett, I see somebody who maybe doesn't have a lot of need. I know that's like funny, but it's like he has billions and billions of dollars. He seems to have bootstrapped himself, you know, like crazy. And I do know in my own life there were multiple stages of needing to be rescued. You know, that pushed me into like a new awareness of like, oh, I can't do this myself. But for a guy who seems like he's just analytically, incrementally compound interested his way up, and he takes the trash out and he goes to McDonald's and all these things. And so I don't know if there's a ton of overlap between that experience and young people nowadays. I don't think people really identify with.
That's very helpful. Dave, on the other end of the spectrum, I was with my college pastor yesterday, who's now in his 9th decade, and he said one of the things about diminishing ability is that you recognize that you cannot do this alone. Is there in this last stage of Warren Buffett's life, do you often see older people who have everything but are now giving stuff away and having to come face to face with that reality of death? Do they think differently, or do people dig in?
Well, I have, pastorally, I've seen both happen. I've seen both of those extremes. I've seen people dig in and hold on closely and not let it go. And I've seen other people who have released, almost excessively released, in just the opposite direction, in that there's nothing important anymore here. If there's anything in the house you want, please feel free to take it, kind of thing.
Right.
And so I've seen both of those. I've seen that happen with personal possessions, but I've also seen that happen.
Some people get buried with their cars.
Oh my heavens, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen that happen. I want all this stuff to go with me.
Right.
Please take it,
Right. if
there's something I have that you want, feel free. Yeah, so that release, I really do think it has less to do with age and much more to do with a thought process that preempted that age in any way. How did I get here is much more important than, okay, what do I do now that I am here, in that respect. And so, my issue that I in discovering Warren Buffett's thought process is that it's exactly that. It's a thought process for him. And belief is a faith process, which is much less intellectual and much more emotional in that way. And so if you're going to think your way into heaven, that's going to be a challenge. Right? You're always going to find something to draw that
because
up short.
Because I cannot see it.
Right. There's always a leap of faith.
So, Amber, one of the things he does say is, he says, one of the reasons I can't get there is because I believe faith is a gift, and I have not been given that gift. And he's looking at it, and he says, I just can't get there. When you're talking to somebody who just can't see, doesn't see the math, it doesn't add up, where does your conversation go?
Sure. So I was with a young woman a few weekends ago at a youth and government program that I was part of, and she came up to me and we built a little bit of a rapport, and she was a pastor's daughter, and she was talking about how she struggles. It's hard being in school where kids sometimes make fun of you for your faith, and she's like, sometimes I just struggle and I can't tell my parents because I'm afraid of what they'll say. She was struggling to find the gift. And the advice I gave her was, God doesn't ask us to pray when things are good, when we're feeling great. Pray those agonizing prayers of, God, why aren't you giving me this gift? My father has this gift. My mother has this gift. Give me the belief, give me the perception to see that you are real and that I need you in my life. And I pray that worked for her. I pray that she is bringing those agonizing prayers to God, and hopefully Warren Buffett will as well.
Yeah. Luke, the idea of a Warren Buffett not having the certainty, take 30 seconds and walk through someone in your generation who is looking at these facts. They are not adding up. How do you suggest that they sort through it on their own?
I mean, I actually think it's easier for someone in my generation than it is for someone in his generation, just because there is less certainty for somebody right now who currently doesn't have any money and is trying to figure out how to bootstrap this thing. They're just feeling very, a lot of what I see is like, everything's shifting, everything's changing, I can't afford a house, I can't afford this. We all know all of those grievances. So it is like, I literally can't do this. This feels impossible. I need something outside of myself. Maybe there's a higher power out there that can help.
Let's start the search.
Let's start the search.
Yeah.
And I think that little open door is all that's
Very
needed.
helpful. Thank you, panel. This is very helpful. Well, sex trafficking is happening right here in Pennsylvania. Many victims are lured through the internet or even at school. To ensure compliance, traffickers use fear and intimidation. We'll learn how North Star Initiative is walking alongside survivors to provide safety and security. You're watching Morning Light on Lighthouse TV.
Sex trafficking is a federal crime in all 50 states. According to North Star Initiative, the average age of a child to be exploited by a trafficker is 15. 50% of victims are female and 30% are children. Sadly, 50% of the survivors North Star serves are trafficked by a family member.
And those are sobering statistics. North Star Initiative advocates for the restoration of women from sex trafficking for freedom, for life, forever. Joining me right now is the CEO, Melinda Clark. Thank you for being with us.
Glad to be here.
Tell us more about North Star Initiative. When did it begin?
North Star Initiative was launched in 2010 because a woman in Lancaster County paid attention to what was going on around her, noticed something that seemed off, and actually ended up liaising with local law enforcement to expose a drug trafficking or a sex trafficking ring in Lancaster County, and realized this isn't just an overseas issue, this is happening here. And since then, we now operate 2 shelters for women who have experienced sex trafficking to empower them to reclaim the lives that they are created to enjoy through healing their whole person.
Oh my goodness. So what does sex trafficking look like? I mean, as Jeff was saying in the beginning of our show, I mean, you hear about it, but you don't think it's happening right here in Pennsylvania. What does it look like?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that we often picture it happening by force. We have this Hollywood-driven image of a van pulling up, someone being snatched, be out guard. You should be on guard, but really sex trafficking is much more likely to happen online through the luring and grooming of someone to create an emotional bond that is then exploited with that person who presented themselves as a loving partner, someone interested romantically, then instead says, I need you to do this for me, we need to work this business together. Social media is the biggest recruitment strategy for traffickers, and the trafficker is most likely to be someone that the victim knows or has encountered in a social setting or online.
So how do these people work out of the system? How do you identify them?
The victims of sex trafficking or human trafficking, we're looking for someone who is isolated and already experiencing vulnerability. Traffickers are looking for easy targets. They're looking for someone who already is experiencing a human need for food, shelter, human connection, somebody who is isolated or could be isolated. They're not feeling connected to their family. The biggest protective factor is to be surrounded by adults, by peers who are paying attention and engaging them in the social fabric so that they have that protective barrier against someone who would exploit them. Looking for someone isolated without their identification papers, doesn't seem to know where they are, doesn't seem to be prepared for the elements, and those are all risk factors that we should be paying attention to and lean in to learn more about the story.
So how does North Star Initiative walk alongside victims?
We really focus on empowering them to heal their whole person. We focus on psychoeducation. We do a lot of trauma healing with our clinical work. Our case managers focus on helping them to recover what was lost to them in the experience of being trafficked, from identification papers to medical care to dental care, to ensuring that they have what they need through workforce development, preparing to enter or re-enter the workforce, and then providing them with a network of support where those vulnerabilities that maybe made them prey to a trafficker no longer exist. Our goal and intention is that they should be able to reintegrate into the community to live as flourishing neighbors, the lives that they are intended and created to enjoy.
Yeah, that is wonderful. How do you weave the gospel into what they're going through? Because they are struggling.
We believe that healing the whole person is the whole person. That is physical, mental, educational, and spiritual. We are motivated by the love of Jesus in what we do. And because we know the transforming power of God's love at work in someone's heart, we know that healing is possible in any story. So we take the approach of loving and caring and serving, and then inviting curiosity from the women that we serve. They have been exploited in so many ways. They've had so much choice taken away from them. We meet them where they're at, ask them what they want to know, and then answer their questions about how God can heal. As one survivor told me, how does he heal the unhealable? Except that he does, and I'm experiencing it. So we invite them to meet Jesus, the one truly safe man who invites them to experience life as beloved daughters in the Father's family. And we walk that out in relationship with them every day and meet them where they're at.
What type of transformations have you seen?
It is glorious. The work that we do at North Star with survivors is some of the hardest and holiest work I have ever done. But to see someone come in who did not believe that she had any hope, did not believe she had any skill, who did not believe that she could ever live life on her own terms, leaving clean, sober, with work, with housing, with a car, with a network around her, walking out saying, as one of our graduates just said, I never thought this could be me. I did not know that I could actually be in the community without being afraid.
Wow, that is wonderful. We have much more to talk about. Melinda, we do need to take a break, but we do want to talk about how you really are empowering these women. And coming up next on Morning Light, Equipping Overcomers, North Star Initiative is helping survivors gain independence by providing job opportunities. We're back in 1 minute. Welcome back. Gaining freedom from exploitation is rarely a one-time decision. 80% of survivors experience re-victimization. North Star offers a program to help survivors get back on their feet by providing job opportunities. Joining me once again is CEO Melinda Clark. So tell us about Florissant Collective.
Florissant Collective is actually the dream of one of our staff who had a vision to provide a workforce experience to survivors, to residents in our shelters. We operate a shelter in Lancaster County and one in Berks County. And we recognize that one of the biggest barriers to sustained independence, which is our desire for the residents we love and serve to experience, is the ability to reintegrate into the workforce. When you realize that the average age of exploitation is 15, and then you think about all the ways that maybe our own work experience typically developed, you realize that coming at age 25 or 35 out of a program like ours, even knowing how to apply for a job, how to show up and just be present throughout that shift is not something that is easy. So by offering Florissant Collective as a workforce experience for our residents, they go through the experience of applying, signing up for shifts, showing up for shifts, being in this social setting and going and staying in it, doing the work with a supervisor who is trauma-informed, who is equipping them, who is educating them, and giving them real experience that they can then put on a resume or put on a job application so that they are truly empowered to go out and look for the work that they most want to enjoy.
Now, you brought us some examples. Tell us about Florissant Collective. Love the name, by the way.
Yes, Florissant is a French word for flourishing, and we are equipping overcomers to flourish and sustain their own goals. We are currently survivors are creating these wax melts and wax sachets, which you can purchase on florissantcollective.com. We are also in the testing phase of candles, and as you can see, they are all very natural scents and very floral. The floral theme is kind of consistent throughout this idea of that hardy flower, the wildflower that you see flourishing by the wayside, that God waters, God protects, and nobody pays attention to, but God is overseeing the flourishing of that flower. So that's kind of the basis. And these are wonderful. The products that are available or on our website, northstarinitiative.org, and they are all touched by, created by survivors who are not only involved in creating these products, but they are also involved in ideas and marketing, and they can have different entrepreneurship experiences through Florissant Collective.
So this is really shaping their lives for success.
Yes, and giving them the vision that they can succeed in something that maybe they've never done or never been able to maintain before. At the same time, they are earning a dignified wage throughout the program so that they begin to have access to earn and manage their own money. They're learning financial literacy, and then when they leave the program, North Star matches any of their savings to give that financial buffer as they re-enter the community.
Oh, that is wonderful. So what is your message to someone who is struggling or is mixed up in sex trafficking?
That you are worthy of being treated with dignity and respect, and that there are people who will come alongside. What we hear from a lot of survivors is they thought that they were on their own, and they thought that they were too broken, that their experience was too ugly for them ever be able to come out and be cared about again. And one of the things that we then hear when they come into our program is, I didn't know that it could be like this. I didn't know that people cared. I didn't know I would be loved like this. And so my message would be, if someone is telling you, you don't deserve any better than this, and this is all you're good for, that is not true. There are people who care. There are people who are involved and invested and committed to your ultimate flourishing, to be all that God has made you to be. And it is hard to leave that situation that you are in, where you've been where this person, it feels like they're loving you like you've never been loved before, or you don't know how to break that addiction. But if you take one step towards freedom, we are there waiting and ready to help you take all the other steps that you need to take. And you can reach out through our website, northstarinitiative.org, call the number on our website. Someone will help. We will listen. We will see you.
So just make that first step.
Yes.
Just break it and just make that phone call or get online, but reach out.
And it takes the courage. It's hard. And it takes enough courage to think this could be better and this could be different. And often that is the moment where it goes from a survivor being in that life and feeling that like this will never change to something interrupts that, whether it's hearing this message, something frightening happens, maybe there's an encounter with law enforcement or recovery, and someone begins to think, I don't know if I want my life to continue being this way, but I would need help. Does that exist? It does exist. There are resources, and abundant resources for anyone to flourish and be all that they're made to be.
Thank you for that message. I'm sure one of our viewers is watching this and needs that message. Thank you so much. And for more information, as Melinda said, about human trafficking or the Florissant Collective, go to northstarinitiative.org. Stay with us. We're back right after the break.
Welcome back. Well, Warren Buffett said his father, Howard, was the best man he ever knew, his hero, a source of unconditional love. When he died at 60, Omaha's leading newspaper said the conservative congressman had two qualities that set him apart: outspokenness and blazing integrity. 500 neighbors turned out at Dundee Presbyterian Church to hear his pastor talk about the source of Howard Buffett's integrity, his Christian faith, his devotion to God. In the end, Howard Buffett's body was destroyed by a 4-year battle with cancer and arthritis. Pastor Stimson said he never complained, that it was a victory of the spirit over the weakness of the flesh. Years after he buried his dad, Warren Buffett says it's still a struggle to take the path of his Sunday school teaching father. But even at 94, there's plenty of time to discover something infinitely more valuable than the billions he'll leave behind: saving eternal faith in Christ. For Deborah and the entire Morning Light team, I'm Jeff Coleman. Thanks for watching. Check on your neighbors, and God willing, we'll see you back here tomorrow morning.